What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Blerd It Out. We are on break this week from One Piece. You're waiting on chapter 1122 to pop out. So we're going to be talking about Egghead today. And I know we're technically not done with the arc, but we're close. We're very close. In fact, we probably have... Well, actually, I've been saying we have like a couple of chapters left for a while now. I do think... obviously we're at the end here. But the way Oda's kind of been doing it, the last few chapters here aren't going very fast, I should say. And what I mean by that is that, we're not seeing the chapter like time progression go, considering we're still doing this speech. But before we get into it, a word from our sponsors. Thank you for tuning in to Blerd It Out. Whether you're listening from YouTube on my channels like Darren King Kuma or Blerd Out Podcast, or one of the many podcast sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more, I appreciate your support. If you want to listen to older episodes of that podcast, head on over to Patreon. If you join as a free member, you can watch all the old episodes from the old seasons for free. Plus, there'll be other content that didn't quite make it to an episode or on a YouTube video that you can check out there as well. Your support means the world. And if you have not caught up to the latest chapters, please note there will be spoilers ahead.
Oops. Spoilers.
So we're here wrapping up Egghead, and it's moving along slower than I imagined. I thought we would be out of here, honestly, probably by last chapter. And I feel like I want to say that there's 1 or 2 chapters left, but it might go on longer than that. Just because of the way, like if you look at last chapter, it was only a matter of seconds in real time, if you think about it. Because chapter 1120, we were launching off of Egghead. Like, Atlas basically sacrificed herself to tap explosion, push Sunny. Chapter 1121, we still have the ship in the air. Like, the ship has not made it anywhere past where it launched from. So, like, time itself isn't moving as fast as I kind of expected it to, and it's really because of Vegamon's speech and the way that Oda's kind of he's filling in the spaces of time with different areas, different reactions, things like that. It makes the chapter overall feel slower, and then that means we're in Egghead longer. I think we will have one more big thing before Egghead fully ends, just because I think one of the editors said there's one more reveal left before we would close out the arc. And like this reel is supposed to be a real page turner. Now that the editors can sometimes exaggerate things, so we'll take that with a grain of salt. But I'm keeping that in mind for this video because we're actually going to be talking about the good, the bad, the Egghead, or like the top best, the top worst, and what might still be to come. And just to preface the top worst, this doesn't mean that these moments are inherently bad or that I dislike them. It's just that as far as an arc goes, these moments kind of, maybe they drag down the pacing, they bog down the story a little bit. They don't move as well as the good moments do. And I want to hit the bad moments first here so we can get those out of the way. We can talk about the really good stuff. The first of the top 5 for worst is the Gear 5 spam. I feel like Gear 5 was a very special thing in Wano where, Luffy obviously unlocks it, goes into it, times out, and then he brings himself back into it, but it doesn't feel like spam, because it's like it feels almost like he's giving up part of his lifespan, or he's going to the extreme to use Gear 5 again. It's like when Luffy's fighting Lucci, and Lucci back in East Lobby, and he gets hit with Rokyogun again, but he's like, I can't go back down, I gotta keep pushing. That's what Gear 5 felt like in Wano. In Egghead, he's used it about 4 or 5 times now. Like he used it initially with Lucci. Whenever he used it with Kizaru, he used it with the Gorosei multiple times. He had like multiple snack breaks, and it just feels like there's no like magic in it. Is it cool to see? Yeah. Does it make interesting fights? Yeah. I want it to be used sparingly. And maybe not even sparingly, but less than it is now, I guess. I still want to see Gear 4. I still want to see, like base hockey with different levels of like, how Luffy fights in base, but sometimes he'll use like Gear 2nd on an arm or Gear 3rd on an arm, mix hockey with it. Like, I want to see that combat more than I want to see Gear 5 being spammed over and over and over again. I kind of feel like Gear 5 is a cheat code in some fights. And in other fights, it just feels like it doesn't belong. And I think I felt that after the Giants gave Luffy some food. So I was like, really again? I thought at that point, I thought we had kind of depleted Gear 5 and that we'd be using other methods to kind of get around, but they just had some food on stock and Luffy's just back into it, which is insane because we saw kind of how drained it makes Luffy after he uses it a couple times now. And so for it to be like in spamming like this, you would almost think this is like it's having a Gear 2nd effect where it drains years and years off his life. But so far, we really haven't seen any side effects besides like him looking older and then eating food and being better. Second thing on the list would be Jupiter. And it's not anything he's like done specifically, it's just him existing. Because he has been such a bore of an antagonist, of a Gorosei, of a top tier, like in the entirety of Egghead. Like he showed up, started sucking, literally and figuratively. And that's all he's been doing the entirety of this arc. I don't know if he's even like said a word. Has he said something? Has he done anything other than suck this entire time? I don't think he has. And I pointed out because the level of action the Gorosei take, I think, should be high level. These are the leaders of the world, right? The 5 Elder Stars. We have high expectations for them. When Jupiter comes out and all he does is like suck stuff, gets pushed around and then starts sucking again, that's so boring. Like Gandhi's out here taking out Pacifista, fighting with Giants, fighting with the Straw Hats. Saturn's out here doing the same thing. Not taking out Pacifista, but he's fighting with people trying to stop people. Mars is out here hunting for the Din Din Mushi. At the very least, Mercury, he's not like doing a whole lot, but he's keeping Luffy and Dory and Broggy, occupied. Like he's not getting the MVP, but he's still assisting. Jupiter, I don't think has done anything like even remotely helpful the entire time. Why is he here? He could have stayed back. He could have stayed back in Maryjoy. He could have been making Emu some tea or something. Because why is he here? I feel like he brings down the overall threat of the Gorosei. Third on the list, Vegapunk's speech. And this is the one I really want to emphasize. Doesn't mean, just because it's on the worst list doesn't mean that I dislike it or that it's bad. But I think Vegapunk's speech has definitely bogged down Egghead just because of its length, the content within, and how it's kind of carrying the arc longer than it feels it needs to be. Because I think we've had close to 25 chapters of kind of just Vegapunk speech, or like lead up to chapters centered around the speech that's either happening, gonna happen, or is wrapping up. It's just been a long time. And as a weekly reader, that adds up. That's months of us reading about Vegapunk's speech. And yes, interesting things are happening in between, and seeing the reactions to people, seeing how people are taking in the information is interesting. I do like to see that. I think some of it can be condensed, and I think that it would be better if we were getting more information out of it. I said before that part of the speech that kind of it sucks to be deeper in the One Piece community is that if you're not a casual reader, you come to these conclusions either by watching theory videos, by having your own theories. Some of this stuff we've kind of already figured out. So we're not being shocked by this revelation. This isn't new info for us, and therefore we're kind of like, okay, move to the new stuff. And then when we move to the new stuff, when we finally start talking about the Will of D, it gets cut off. We get blue balled on the most interesting part of the speech, and we have no idea if we're gonna go back over that. So it's like this speech has been so long, and it feels like the returns are diminishing, right? You know, it started off strong with the world is sinking, we're using ancient weapons, the mother flame, and then it kind of just started turning into Vegapunk droning about morality and his lack thereof. You know, what's good, what's evil. We got some nice history lore, but none of it really clarified anything for us. So at the end of the day, you know, what are we taking from Vegapunk's speech? I think it points out some things, and even Vegapunk himself says during the speech that, you know, he can't speculate. He'll only speak on what he's figured out. So it's not like he's taking leaps and bounds to new information. He's not, you know, interpolating things and creating his own future. He's kind of just regurgitating what the world has collected, which is good for the world of One Piece. It needs to happen in the world of One Piece. But for readers, it can feel like a drag. Number 4, mentally nerfed Kizaru. I think that mentally nerfed for one it's kind of hilarious, because it's like there's always been the Yonko versus Admiral debates, and as far as that goes, Whitebeard versus Akainu has always been one of contention, because it's like in that fight, Whitebeard technically won, and I think even technically, non-technically, Whitebeard won that fight because he was still standing. Akainu was gone for like a chapter or two. Like that was his fight to win. But, you know, we're going through the idea of, well, the Marines can't go all out because it's their base. You know, they have to protect their people. They can't destroy the Holy Land. There's a nerf that's supposedly always on the Marines. And in Egghead, we get Kizaru with a mental nerf. And mental nerf is crazy, because the amount of things that Kizaru does while mentally nerfed is interesting. Like, he kills Vegapunk. He's still clashing with Luffy. He's fighting Sentomaru. Like, he's still doing his job while mentally nerfed. And I'm not going to say that Kizaru does not have conflicting ideals about what's going on here. It's very obvious that he's not processing this well. It's very obvious that seeing his friends, or people, you know, he bonded with, hurt, killed, destroyed, is not sitting well with him, especially since he's the one doing it. That's obvious. But we gotta, I guess, portray that in a few different ways. I think Kizaru has been laying on the ground for chapters upon chapters, and I feel like there's a better way to convey that, you know, maybe he is mentally nerfed. How can we show that in a way that's not just him laying on the ground? Why not have him communicate that mental quandary with Sentomaru, with anyone who's lying around? Why not make that a part of the story? Instead, he's just been silent. He's just been laying there. And now Kizaru's never been the one to be immediately like active, or like he's not a man of many words. He's very like laid back, aloof, goofy. That's just the way Kizaru's always been. Now in this arc, he's definitely been a bit more, I would say, introspective. Like, he's not talking like he normally does. He clearly is talking because he's having some issues with what's going on here. But we don't get any deeper than the surface of that. I feel like there's so much to explore with Kizaru, and we're not getting that. Yet, through all these fights and stuff, we're just like, well, clearly he's mentally nerfed. Like, yeah, but give us some more. Show us some more. Otherwise, it's just him not wanting to do things because he doesn't like it. That's essentially what it's boiling down to, is that he's unhappy with what's going on, so he's just deciding to not do anything. And that's not entirely interesting as a character perspective. I feel like you can expound on that some more. Make it interesting. And the fifth thing, the worst, is the world government incompetence, because time and time again, they consistently mess up or do things that put them in a bad light. Like, I think I've said it before, where Egghead is a shining example of all of their incompetencies brought to one place. Because you have Vegapunk, the world's smartest man that you're trying to kill, and he's doing things that you have explicitly banned. Yet you didn't have enough surveillance to stop the world's smartest man from doing it. And not only that, he's now told this information to the world. And you didn't stop that either. Not only did you not stop him from studying it, you failed to stop him from telling the entire world about it. You have Luffy, who is the reincarnation of Sun God Nika, who has the Nika Nika no Mi, which is something you've been trying to stop for centuries. Like, you've been trying to eradicate Sun God Nika for centuries. And then you have Luffy, who has the fruit that matches the abilities of the Sun God Nika. And you can't catch him. Granted, they've tried, but you would have to think that there are better ways to do it. Like at Marineford. The only person that really went after Luffy in Marineford was Akainu. And that was because he, as his absolute justice thing, was like, well, you're a dragon son, so I have to kill you. Otherwise, nobody was doing anything to Luffy. Where it's like, if Luffy becomes top priority, once you realize he's Sun God Nika, where it's like, we've been trying to get rid of this for centuries, and he's at our doorstep. Yeah, nah. Forget Ace. Forget Whitebeard. Kill Luffy. I want everybody on Luffy. And you can mask it as he's Revolutionary's son. Boom. You're going to kill Ace because he's Roger's son. Kill Luffy because he's Dragon's son. Easy. But they just don't do that. So Luffy gets off scot-free. Now he's awakened the fruit, and he's the sun god, and now you definitely can't do anything about it because he's broken. You let Bonnie get away. Bonnie has the experimentation fruit that you've been trying to work with. Now she can formalize any future she can think of, and she can essentially copy Sun God Nika. So now you get two sun gods because you failed to stop the first one. And she's like, what are you guys doing? You clearly have these things that you don't want to happen, but you're not putting in the work to stop them from happening. There's no reason you should have let Sun God Nika come to fruition if you were planning for centuries to stop it. And you got Kuma here, who it's like Saturn was doing this whole deal about, I'm a scientist. No way you can pull one over on me. And then Vegapunk pulls one over on him. Easy. Didn't even have to try. Because not only did he pull one over on switching out like how Kuma was supposed to have a self-destruct, got rid of that. He gave Bonnie command of all Kumas, and you didn't know about it. So now she has control over your entire legion of pacifistas. Plus, she has the age fruit that she can become Sun God Nika. You let her get away. How did she get out of Akanu's hands? He captured her. She dipped, broke into the Holy Land, broke out of the Holy Land. Like, come on. Just overall incompetent. And I feel like it's going to continue. I don't think we're going to see anybody do anything smart for the remainder of this arc. This arc is going to end, and it's going to be a world government failure in its entirety. At most, they get hold of like the completed Mother Flame, and you can give that a win, but the amount of L's you took to get that Mother Flame, I think, are insane. You could have balanced that out a little bit. But enough of the bad. Let's talk about the good, because there's an army of good moments in Egghead. Egghead is truly like a really strong arc for, being in a top 5, top 10 argument. For me, I still haven't decided yet. I have to wait until these chapters end, until Egghead is officially closed. Because, you got like in the Sloppy Water 7, you have Sabaody, you have Thriller Bark is one of my favorites. I know people don't like it, but Thriller Bark is honestly one of my top 5. You have Marineford, like, Arlong Park. I don't know. It might be hard for Egghead to tap. Actually, no, it's not hard. It won't. I'll say this. Egghead has top 5 potential. As long as Egghead doesn't bomb its ending, it will be in my top 5. How high will depend on how that ending hits. Because right now, Kuma's backstory which is going to be my top moment of this arc in its entirety. But Kuma's backstory is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, bringing this arc to top 5. But speaking of which, top 5 best moments. Kuma's backstory. Kuma's backstory. Now, that has a place near and dear to my heart. I've been waiting for Kuma lore since, I want to say since like Jaya, but realistically it's been since Thriller Bark. That's when Kuma became like my favorite character. So waiting, what are we, like, it hasn't been 1,000 chapters. It's been like probably, that's back in the, I don't know the chapter number. I know the episode number is in the 300s. So the chapter is probably in the 300s, 400s. So we're about 700 chapters, I'd say, give or take. And we're finally getting it like that. That brings a happiness to my heart that, One Piece already has a special place with me. But just getting to see my favorite character get fleshed out when, I was never sure if he would or not is amazing. And Otis snapped on the backstory. He went insane on the backstory. Like, I put Kuma's, it's definitely top 5. Definitely top 5. Right now we have Kuma's competing with, I think, the likes of Robin, Brook, and Law for that top spot. But I might put it at like, I kind of want to put it at 1, but I feel like that's got to be some bias. It's got to be some bias. I have to like really analyze, because for me, it's between probably Kuma's and I want to say Robin's as far as like the ones that kind of hit me the most. So I gotta just like take a look at both of them again. I plan on going through Kuma's again once the anime picks it up, but I got to go through both of them again and see which one really hits. But everything we got from Kuma's backstory was everything I wanted. Like, it had revolutionary stuff, which was a theory I had back in 2011, 2012, I think. Sometime way back when it was like Arlen Park forums, the Earl Jackson, the forums were still open. I would constantly post there talking about Kuma's got to be a revolutionary. He's got to know Vegapunk and all that stuff. And like, Vegapunk's got to be a revolutionary because he's with Kuma and all that. So to see that kind of come around full circle here, amazing. And it's so sad. Like, I'm a sucker for a sad backstory. So everything Kuma went through and the way he turned out, even going through all that, I think makes him such a strong character. And I knew like that the tyrant thing, from Thriller Bark, I knew that was some kind of propaganda. And I think there's like storytelling things that kind of point out like to the fact that the characters would always bring that up when Kuma arrived. And it would always be contrary to how he appeared. He would show up, he'd be calm, chill, collected. Every time somebody saw him, they would say he's one of the cruelest pirates in existence. And it's like, okay, these things don't match up. But, that's what they say, so that's what a lot of people go with. And we see that that's definitely not the case here. And just the amount of care put into Kuma's backstory, and really the amount of things that are set in motion because of Kuma's backstory are insane. Like, Kuma's backstory has so many connections to the main story that if Kuma wasn't a character in the series, we wouldn't be here right now. We legit wouldn't be. We would be back at episode what? We'd be back at episode 400. Like, or I guess episode 404, basically. Because if Kuma doesn't save us, he's always weapons out. We going to impel down. It's over. So yes, Kuma's backstory is obviously in the top best, but it is my personal favorite. Up next, Shanks and Kid. Now, the anime just got to Shanks and Kid. Looked amazing. Loved it. I think this was such a hyped moment because we knew Kid was going to Elbaf, right? So we figured the rematch was happening. We didn't think it was going to happen like this. Like, utterly destroyed, like decimated. And I mean, it's a parallel to Law and Blackbeard, because basically we have these three pirate captains who they've got this 3 bill bounty. You know, Luffy's a Yonko, and Law and Kid are basically they're putting them on the same wavelength as Luffy, but they go up against some real Yonko and they get no diffed. I do say Law did much better against Blackbeard than Kid did to Shanks, but Shanks is a much better fighter than Blackbeard is. Blackbeard's an idiot. So I think that kind of, you know, it evens out the situations. But that such, I don't, as far as like the hype for seeing what Shanks can do and seeing what Kid can do, we got a really good idea of what it means to be a Yonko and why characters like Kid and Law aren't in that spot. Plus, I don't like Kid, so seeing him get one shot is a plus for me. Up next, Garp at Hachinosu. This was like an unexpected turn of events for me, because I kind of saw Garp as being more of a background character after Marineford, especially after like he resigned. You know, he was kind of going back to training. It felt like he would have a backseat in the story. For him to pull up on Hachinosu, and he was ready to fight Blackbeard. He straight up went to Hachinosu and said, "Whoever's here, I'm fighting you because I'm getting Kobe back." Unfazed, unafraid, came in Galaxy Impact. And this felt so good because people were talking smack on Garp, talking about how he couldn't hang with Akainu in Marineford. This is 2 years later. Garp showed up and he hockey punched an island. Like, you can't say that he's not hanging with Akainu after that. You just can't. And the fact that we unfortunately don't know what happened to him at the end of this fight, because essentially he gets ganged up on, he ends up taking shots for Kobe, Aokiji's here, a lot happens, and now it's pretty clear that Garp isn't dead, because that would serve no purpose for anybody in the story. So he's alive, he's a bargaining chip. We'll see what happens with that. But just those couple of chapters with Garp, we get backstory with Garp and Aokiji, kind of how Kobe got to where he is, all that. It shows a different side of, what's been happening. It kind of reminds me of like how Luffy, Jinbei, and Rayleigh kind of had their moments. It felt like, Garp, Kobe, Aokiji, and then Sword as a whole kind of had their moments. Like, it's the other side of it, right? I thought that was dope. I want to see what they're going to do with it in anime, because those moments are going to be insane. And then we got Luffy versus Lucci, round 2. This is probably the main instance of Gear 5 that I was okay with. Like, even if I don't think Luffy needs Gear 5 to fight Lucci, I think the implications of it, the callbacks, the feel of it was solid. That gave me his lobby vibes, that gave me One Piece vibes. I was here for it. And then they animated it and they snapped and they made it even better. Like, as far as fights go for what happened on Egghead, I still think this is probably the best one. And I would say that most of the other fights were clashes, skirmishes. We didn't get full-fledged fights. I feel like Luffy versus Lucci is really the main one that got, beginning to end completion. And I think it was the best one. In the last top 5 best moment is Gear 5 Bonnie. Now I know people hate Gear 5 Bonnie. They hate what it means, what it implies for our power set, this, that, and the other. I really like Gear 5 Bonnie. I like the design. I like how it kind of encapsulates her entire journey as a character. I like what it does for her backstory, Kuma's backstory, and Egghead as an arc. I just like it. I think it's so cool. And to separate it from like power scaling, if you look at Bonnie's story, if you look at what she's been through, where she's headed, I feel like her being able to be Nika, if even for a few minutes, if even to use one move, is perfect. It's so well written for her character. It's a perfect circle of like her believing in this figure to becoming this figure, right? And in front of her dad, no less. The person who kind of instilled this belief in her. How can you not love that? How can you not just feel great when you see her transform like that? And get the power scaling out the way. Get the, oh, she's gonna be too OP out of the way. She's not. We've seen what, twice now? She gets like one move off. She stays in that form for such a short time. It's nothing. Don't worry about the power. Think about what it does for the story, and it does wonders for the story. Now, as far as moments, I think if we do get more moments that are polarizing, they're probably going to be good, considering we're at the very end of the arc. I think there is potential for a top 5 replacement. I think there is. With the way the editor is talking, with how Egghead should end, a top 5 placement is not out of the blue. I don't think we're going to get anything that really hurts the arc. I mean, Wano exists, so it's a possibility. But I do think that we're heading in a positive direction. And I kind of made this video before the ending because I wanted to see if that'd be true. Basically, it's like we're at the home stretch. Can we pull in a new one? So I wanted this log here of like what we have so far, and then we're gonna see if what comes up can really top what's going on here right now. But let me know what you guys thought below. Like, comment, subscribe, smash the like button. Catch you in the next one. Peace.